Hi, I'm Rickard Jonsson,
And I'm Anna Franzén.
and we are here to present our recently published article on Excluding Unlaughter for Journal of Linguistic Anthropology. So this paper explores humor, or rather the absence of humor, in a Swedish youth detention center for boys. Humor is generally valued as something positive and morally good. Being humorous or having a good sense of humor is arguably understood as a self-evident, desirable core value in the contemporary Western world. But from this normative aspect follows a darker side of humor, which is the focus of our paper. Consider, for instance, the accusation of being humorless, or the high risks involved in using humor, and the embarrassment that follows when attempts of being funny fail. This paper investigates various emotions or effects evoked by failed humor and especially what we call practices of unlaughter. By unlaughter we mean, following Michael Billig, a display of not laughing when laughter might otherwise be expected, hoped for, or demanded. So while Sar Ahmed has suggested that refusing to laugh may be used as a political strategy for oppressed groups, this paper takes an interest in what happens when unlaughter, on the contrary, becomes a tool for discipline or exclusion. We thus aim to study in interactional detail how unlaughter may take the form of excluding practices and work as a subtle yet highly powerful effective practice.
And the case study we explore is drawn from a video ethnographic study of a Swedish detention home for young men, 13 to 16 years old. And our study focuses on one of these boys, Toma, who recurrently was struggling to be included and accepted in the group of boys and staff. And we argue that his difficulties in affiliating to the rest of the group were primarily maintained through the others' responses of not laughing at his attempts to be funny. Toma's failed attempts at humor also stood out in this context where a particular type of humor was very common, something we have discussed as banal humor in a previous paper. So in this paper, we analyze some instances where Toma's attempts at humor is met with unlaughter. And we also highlight how he draws on the humor culture that is prevailing at the home. In a first example, a staff member named Henke introduces a type of practical humor around the dinner table involving food. Henke is physical with Toma and his food, and as we can see in this instance, where he grabs Toma's hand and humorously steals butter off of the knife that Toma is holding, at the same time, he's here using humorous formatting. And Henke can be seen to use a combination of brief physical contact and banal humor to signal inclusion and belonging. And in the interaction that follows, we can see how Henke continues with this type of humor practice involving food and drawing others into it, both staff and boys. But as is recurrent during the fieldwork, when Toma attempts to play along, his humor contributions are met with unlaughter and even disciplinary treatments. In this example, a few moments later, Toma has attempted to prank Henke by hiding his sandwich as he briefly leaves the room. Toma giggles quietly in excitement as he awaits Henke's return, but Henke does not laugh at all. Instead, his previous cheerful mood is suddenly replaced with apparent irritation, something that takes a few moments for Toma to pick up on. And then follows a long sequence during which Henke, rather than engaging in standard face-saving actions for failed humor, questions Toma's actions, demanding that he explains himself and scolding him for touching someone else's food.
So both Henke and Toma are now positioned in difficult situations. Henke, who deals with a joke that he does not find funny, and Toma, who has the complicated task to explain a practical joke that just failed. Toma makes an attempt, but is told by Henke that you don't kid around with hiding food. So Henke's unlaughter here is more than simply the lack of laughter. It includes disciplinary moves and also reconstructs the meaning of Toma's humor through being from an effort to joke to question a violation of basic dinner rules. And this is not an isolated incident which we show in our paper, but it happens repeatedly during the fieldwork and both in relation to staff and to the other boys. So to conclude, analyzing unlaughter involves examining absences or silences in talk. We argue that these instances where talk and laughter is expected, silence can serve as an essential communicative tool. The sociology of silence has extensively examined oppressive forms of silence, where silence results from being silenced. But Thomas' position in the detention home emerges not so much through being silenced, but through being met with the other silence. These silences in turn generate painful effects, which can be seen in Thomas shifting from doing new joking attempts to looking sad, responding with lower voice, or exploding in anger at the other's Unlaughter. And importantly, the exclusion of Thomas is not carried out in an authoritative way, since according to the popular notion that one only laughs when one is amused, there is nothing out of the ordinary to not laugh. Rather, we argue, Thomas' position as not funny emerged through his attempts to joke and the other's responses of not laughing. Thank you.